of the Planning Economic Development Committee, October 3rd, 2017, to order. And the first item of business this evening is the approval of our minutes from June 20th, 2017 meeting. I think everybody received a copy of those, and this meeting has been rescheduled today due to the storm that came through here. Was that Irma? Irma, yeah. Any changes or suggestions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next, we have discussion and action regarding the traditional neighborhood development zoning classification. And so just to give y'all a little bit of background, a couple, might have been 2 months ago, at the Oconee Economic Alliance monthly Thursday meeting. I don't know the technical term for it. 10 at the top there was a presentation by 10 at the top Executive Director Dean Hebel, and he was talking about development in the upstate and regional growth, which we all see as we travel around the upstate. And someone, a developer who does work all throughout the upstate, mentioned something about the inability to build certain types of residential development in Oconee County due to our current zoning classifications. And I said, well, I haven't heard of anybody trying to build that type of development. And it was something akin to a Patrick Square, which everybody is probably familiar with in Clemson. And he said, well, developers don't want to come into a community and have to get an ordinance changed in order to build their project. They want as little uncertainty as possible. They want as much certainty as possible. So he said, if you want to attract that type of development, you need to make sure that your code provides a clear path to constructing that type of development. So I said, well, that's certainly something that we ought to consider then, because we have zoning in Oconee County, and even in the control-free, I believe the setback lines do not allow for the type of development that we're talking about today, this traditional neighborhood development. So that kind of lays the groundwork of where I thought we should discuss this, and I don't know a whole lot about it, and I'm hoping, looking at the backup material, looks like we've got a lot of stuff that can be discussed today. And so, Mr. Chapman, if you could give us an overview of this type of classification and give us some information to talk about.
Certainly. I was not familiar with Patrick Square at all, so I just did a little bit of research. I reached out to the property, and their property manager got back with me with a lot of information. The first few pages of the backup material, just pictures and photographs of Patrick Square and some of what it looks like. It's Mayberry. It's what everyone wants to have. It's walkable. It's got sidewalks, street trees. It's got a retail in front. It's where the Clemson farmers market is held. Yeah, right there. It's where the Clemson farmers market's held. It's a real nice neighborhood. Now, if you were a developer trying to walk in and do this, there would be two ways. One would be get a whole bunch of BZA special exemptions, variations, or variances, because of anywhere from road widths and right-of-ways to setback lines. The other way would be a planned development district, the PDD. And the PDD is basically a blank slate, or it's also called a PUD in some areas. But basically, you're a developer, you come to us, say, this is what I want to do. And we go, well, maybe this, that, and the other thing doesn't comply with our current zoning, but you can do this as a project. We have one in Oconee County at the moment. It's called Equus. I guess it never really took off, but it got zoned that way. There's a winery, golf course, residential thing. But it does exist, and that worked. The big issue at the moment is that the initial rezoning from control-free district to anything else, such as the PDD, at the moment is 200 acres. So you'd have to have a developer who's very interested in doing a 200 acre development in order to get it done. Now, tonight, I believe there's a 50 acre reduction on it, but that's for you all to discuss this evening at council. That may make it a little more palatable, the PDD. Patrick Square incorporated a lot of open space, something around almost 40% open space. And that's just a developer doing what they wanted to do. And that seemed to be the status quo. Developers like adding that open space, whether it be parks, trees, there's community gardens, things of that nature. Now, Patrick Square is a commercial, it's designed for selling property. If you wanted to do for rental, we actually can do that in this county. Clemson Epic, which is our Clemson Academic Village, which is going in right there across from Hartsville Village, on 123. And I included a site plan for that. They're putting in about 950 beds for student housing, but that's all for rental. So you can do that now, kind of as of right-ish. There's a lot of other things go into it, but as a boilerplate speech, you can do that. If we wanted just to do multifamily housing, like apartment building or condominiums to sell or townhomes to sell, we do have an issue with that because we do have the setback lines. Because that shared wall that townhomes have, that's a setback, or it's not a setback. So we wouldn't allow that as of right for separate properties. So what we could do is adjust those. We've looked at, Planning Commission has looked at various ways of allowing multifamily, and we're kind of working right now on the corridors, so we haven't been putting a full focus onto the multifamily or kind of a more dense housing, but it's something that's definitely on our table, so to speak. I have included the control-free district setbacks towards the back of the packet, as well as the plan development district as it reads, and perhaps some edits to the plan development district that Planning Commission will look at in the future. Also, the plans for Equus are in there, if anybody's interested. Although I imagine some of you may have been part of that rezoning.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Hart or Mr. Davis were on council at that time, but yeah, we did approve that PDD, and it just didn't take off. But, so for a smaller project, if you want to do 50 acres, the change that's coming up this on first reading tonight, is it 50 acres minimum?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so I thought.
And that's just for control-free to anything else.
Right.
So, like, if this could be the PDD could be very palatable for a developer to look at and say, whoa, now I only need 50 acres. I can come, do my negotiations with council and work it all out and create something really beautiful like Patrick Square. That's a great little area, and I could put it in there. So for a smaller, although 50 acres is still a chunk of land, it could be definitely a route to doing Patrick Square in Oconee County. And Patrick Square's, their code of ordinances for their development agreement is about 60 pages long, and it's quite thorough, and it's very well put together. So I have that if that's interesting to anybody. I didn't figure you all want a 60-page ordinance in front of you.
Are there any negatives associated with adding a new zoning classification? I mean, are there any detriments to considering a T&D classification?
No, I don't think there's, in considering it, absolutely not. I mean, let's look at it from a planning perspective. It's something that I like to say, okay, well, we can have more density, the walkability, those aspects, and allow people to kind of do that as of right. So that actually works for the developers as well. Maybe some drawbacks are, it will be much more prescriptive, saying, maybe you have to have a build to line where all the houses are built to a certain area as opposed to a setback from a certain line. So that's what Patrick Square is. They have a build to line. That's why when you look down, all the porches are kind of in a row. It has a nice aesthetic to it. Creates a framework for the person.
Mr. Kane, if I might. Some things that I look at on any time that you have this many houses in an area, I still feel like it's true when you have a development such as this, it's actually a less of an environmental impact because it's in a singular area rather than spread out. Let's say you take this many houses and you spread them out over, instead of 173 acre, it'd probably take, let's call it 400 in Oconee County. The environmental impact would be worse, in my opinion, on something like that. Does that prove to be true? If you're building them all together, like a, kind of like an inner city, is it a better situation because of all the, I guess the utilities and things are all brought in there together? And I'm 99% sure that is on a sewer system. I'm pretty sure that's correct.
I would assume it is as well.
Right.
I believe the answer to your question is yes. I think there have been numerous studies done that show, like, for instance, people in New York City are have a far smaller carbon footprint than we do in Oconee County.
Right.
Because, I mean, between all the buildings being insulated by other buildings, utilities, access to not have to get in your car every time. Like, if you live in Patrick Square, you can go walk to the farmer's market. Granted, it's one shopping trip per day, but that's a couple hundred people not driving that often. So it's definitely much more of a environmental, it's even economical. I didn't look and see what the price points of those homes were recently, but I imagine they have probably,
fast.
yeah, and they have a lot of different housing types too. That's something else to think about. They have multifamily townhomes, they have single family, they have mother-in-law suites or like little detached buildings. It's a very, it's a very nice looking place.
My only real concern would be to establish, if we're gonna have a traditional neighborhood development such as what we have here in Oconee County, that we would establish a buffer zone in between it and the next property, whatever that would be. I know they've done a good job, and I've been to several in Charlotte, and I've been to Patrick Square several times, and they've done a good job on the tree lines, wetland areas, and they're not like right on top, because I know from, speaking to other people in the county, if this was built directly on top, like let's call it 2 or 3 acres within their home, it would cause some issues on top of there. So if there was a buffer set up, I don't know what you'd call it, 500 feet, 500 yards.
Outside of the development.
Yeah, like where your last house would be. That way you're not building right on top, the city's not right on top of an existing residential property on there. I don't know how that would work on there.
Well, actually, we have something in the code that works for that. I'm just trying to find it, but our industrial district requires, I want to say it's a 30-foot buffer all around, and I believe that's the case. But I'm fairly, yes, industrial district, minimum district buffer, I'm sorry, it's 50 feet.
So you would have a 50-foot buffer of trees, shrubbery, pond, something of the.
You could even leave it, depending on the topography where you are, you could even leave it natural as is and kind of build your town, your neighborhood development into that area. Or you could push dirt and create a berm. We come up with some sort of height or tree line or things of that nature. Encourage native vegetation. Fencing's expensive, but it could be also utilized, but it's probably not the best for sound and aesthetics.
Yeah, I think that'd be my only request, to have maybe even do it as a natural 50-foot. I mean, it could be new trees or whatever. That would be my only request that I would have on something like that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one of the other beauties behind these type of developments, though, is the interconnectivity that you can create with neighboring properties. So the possibility is a neighboring 40-acre site could do this development as well, and if properly planned, you could have the interconnectivity between the two, so that the walkability, the rideability, the neighborhood feel is expanded even into another development, so somebody else could actually walk to the commercial areas of that development. If they wanted to go to the Rick Irwins instead of whatever they had on their retail side, they could walk instead of getting in their car and driving out on the main road. So, the buffering's good, but also we need to make sure we create the interconnectivity requirements between the parcels so that you can have the gridded or density development connect to each other and alleviate traffic out on the main roads.
Could you do something similar if that was going to occur, to have a option in on that for, like, let's say that I own the 40 acres and I was not interested in that, and the buffer was XYZ, and Paul owned the next 40 acres, and he said, no, I would like to be in that, so he could sign off and not have that so-called buffer on his. Would that work, or is that too much?
I think you could. I think what you do is you just make sure that as they develop, the developer has to provide an access easement at some point in their adjoining properties to other properties that are identified as developable.
I think it would have to be right when they're, you know,
That's
an
right.
option. It'd be like, Mr. Kane, would you like this option? If you say no, then I just wonder about that, because I would think when you're gonna put, you know, a 200-acre, you know, development in a place, you know, you're gonna have multiple, you know, there's not a lot of places around here to, you know, inner city to do. I guess there is. I mean, that's kind of a stupid,
Well, I mean, just
Thinking,
looking
but-
at the picture, I mean, let's take the right side of the photo, and you've got the housing, you see it pretty densely populated right there, and just to the right of it, you've got what looks to be a walking track, but let's pretend that's just a neighboring 40-acre site, right? So what we would say is on your preliminary plat approval and final plat approval, they're gonna have, this developer of Patrick Square is gonna need to provide an access easement out that side of the property at some point, depending on the amount of acres. Maybe we require 2, maybe it's a scaled version. That way, if that neighboring site to the side of it, to the, you know, the right side of it starts to develop, they now have access points to the public roads that are in Patrick Square, so it's all interconnected.
Okay.
And you create an even larger sense of community. And you create another densely populated grid pattern, if you will. That way you've got people who can access all of those amenities without having to go to the main road. That's just an option. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
No,
you know,
that's
if you
good.
go up to Davidson, Cornelius, and places like that, when you see their neighborhoods built, you see actually paved roads that go into the middle of nowhere and stop. They actually require their development to go ahead and put that connection point into their development and prepared for that neighboring property to develop. And then they would tie into that, and all of a sudden, boom, you've got interconnectivity between the developments. That's just an option you see a lot of them do.
I think that's a good idea.
I got a question. This Patrick Square, is this for property owners, is this a rental?
Sales. It's,
What?
it's for sale, sir. Property owners.
Property owners?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know of a complex near 6 Mile that they got little houses built all in there and they rent every one of them. It's right near Daniel High School. And also in the city of Seneca is Tamarack. And of course, I understand it falls into the city of Seneca's, rules, but, I don't think they have setbacks, but say like 5 feet. So most of this stuff that you're looking here would do better probably near a city. Is that correct?
This whole design is to kind of create a city unto itself. That's the idea, because there's actually an educational facility there. It says education center. I'm not 100% sure what they teach. There's some commercial options as well as residential. So yeah, having a density of people, it probably, if you stuck it out in the middle of somewhere, like that, perhaps that Equus community that we, that didn't take off, maybe it does need a little more density, but I think we have the land and a lot of attractions here that it could very well work for. This is an area I think that's possibly up and coming, so it's, this could be a very great tool to kind of manage the growth and make it look pretty.
Scott, would these normally be county roads after they build a spec? Is that normally what you would think?
Well, I was gonna let you guys talk about all the positives before I brought up those negatives.
Well, but let's keep going with the positives for a second. I mean, that's one of the things is the infrastructure here is, it's very dense. So these houses are served, I mean, by very minimal roads because they are put pretty close together. But also the sewer, water, electric, you don't have to run extra distances between houses. And
It's
so
been
there's a
proven-
benefit there,
It's
right?
been proven to, the cost to the developer to get the same number of rooftops, the cost of the developer is cheaper in this scenario than it is in your traditional sprawled neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually proven to be more beneficial to developers because they're investing less money and then generating more because the value of the property is higher and they can sell them for more, so the margin's larger for developers.
What about the
And most
taxing
of-
authority?
Do what?
What about the taxing authority, this county?
It's
We
higher
would-
property values.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
it would generate a higher value for the county as well.
And then cost to serve on sewer and water and roads, all infrastructure will be lower as well?
Again, you wanna talk about the positives. The cost to serve
Okay.
on roads gets more expensive.
Okay.
Okay, in the development like this. Most of these T&Ds also require a certain percentage of open space that's gonna bring in that dense, development that's gonna provide that cheaper development cost. So as he was saying, that carbon footprint and your environmental impact is a lot better because you're concentrating your runoff into a particular area where it can be controlled instead of in a broader area, and you've got that environmental impact that's gonna help. So what we're gonna do is require a certain amount of green space for every rooftop, right? So for every developed acre, you're gonna require, I don't know, a fourth of an acre of green space, whatever the limit is. So that's beneficial, but just to answer your question quickly, yes, the cost of installation is cheaper and the cost of maybe utilities is cheaper to maintain, but when it gets to roads, it becomes more expensive because generally you have a narrower road path, you have sidewalks, lights, trees and everything right on the road, and the houses, if you look at some of these pictures, are just feet off of the road. You got curbing and gutter more than likely. So it becomes more expensive for us to maintain roads than it does if you just have a straight up neighborhood road where nothing but mailboxes are in the right of way, so.
That doesn't seem logical to me. If all these people are walking to the market and back, how they're wearing the roads out.
They're not, but they still have to go out and drive to work. I mean, you're still gonna have to maintain them. You're still gonna have vehicular traffic. Does it extend the life of the road? Absolutely. But down the road, it's still gonna be required to have some maintenance. Then if you wanna talk about, some communities might wanna do an impervious surface road. Some requirements are, in T&Ds, you have an impervious surface requirement, right? So there was a community in Florida that actually, put in brick-lined streets for drainage purposes. Well, what they found was through the installation, it created puddles, and they thought that was gonna be a problem, but what they found was the puddling due to the streets, the brick-lined streets, brought the kids outside after a rain, and they were playing in the puddles and creating a sense of community and active play amongst the kids. So they thought, well, that was actually an indirect benefit. And that's what these communities are designed to do. A lot of people have argued, a lot of theorists have argued that when we started making our private spaces better than our public spaces is when we lost a sense of community. When we took front porches off of houses, that's when we lost a sense of community because nobody hung out on a porch anymore and talked to their neighbors as they walked by down the street. So what this concept is trying to do is create a smaller private space and a larger public space and bring people outside into more of a sense of community. And that's what these things do. If you look at every single one of those pictures on Patrick Square, you'll see a porch on their house. 90% of them, I guarantee you. And you'll see a picture of somebody sitting out there talking to somebody. I haven't looked at them, but I guarantee you'll see it.
Or at least out there texting.
Sure.
So
To their
they
neighbor
might
across-
actually
to
see
their neighbor
somebody.
right across the street.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what these things are designed to do, is bring people outside, build a sense of community, and not be wrapped up in our house playing Xbox all the time.
Mr. Kane, I guess you would need a recommendation to take this before, the next step would be to make a recommendation to planning? Is that where you were headed with this?
I think it's either planning or direct to council, but should we, I think planning should go through it unless we had a development like this on the line, which I don't think we do. But I know planning's very busy with the corridor plan. I saw that work in progress last night, so I don't know how much they've got on, in the pipeline.
Well, and, sorry, Mr. Chapman, let me jump in. I think that if this is something that this committee wants to see at least some models on, it's an appropriate time, because corridor planning, this could actually play a large part in that corridor planning if you want to identify some of these capabilities in some of those areas between Clemson and Seneca, where I think they might actually take off near that college town. So
Right.
it actually might be an appropriate time as we start corridor planning to have this type of discussion available in case we wanted to identify some of those areas in that corridor. The committee could do one of two things. You could refer it to full council to be referred to the planning commission, or I think it's actually appropriate for you guys to actually refer it to the planning commission for discussion as well, and then with the direction that they staff bring back to this committee some results of those discussions. Either way.
Okay, so yeah, I think we probably do we need a vote to recommend, or vote to refer it to planning commission?
I think that's appropriate. I think Mr. Rubin would say yes.
I'd like to add something.
Yes, sir.
We got a meeting with planning commission right away. I think we are just waiting, bring it up with them at that time.
Well, I think we need to refer it to them officially so that we can bring it up with them, unless we would bring it up under new business at that meeting. Is that October
24th.
19th? 24th.
Before the next Monday, not next Monday, but the following one, so.
I mean, they could potentially have some preliminary discussions at the next meeting and be prepared for that discussion at the workshop, to be able to actually discuss some things. I don't know. It's up to you.
I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to go ahead and start the work on a traditional neighborhood development. Guess that'd be a
Zoning classification?
zoning classification,
Yeah, we can do it as a zoning classification, as a zone.
and then you
separate
can
entity.
begin to get some stuff together on what this has to present to them.
Mhm.
And that way, when we start to discuss it, it'll be a little bit, because that's all this is a recommendation, to get something going. It's nothing more than that, so we can start discussing those items.
Mr. Hart, will you second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Chapman. Appreciate that. Next up, we have our economic development update and Mr. Blackwell.
As she is pulling up that presentation, Mr. Kane, members of council, Mr. Mulder, Madam Clerk, and those tuning in at home, thank you for a few minutes to talk about economic development. Hopefully you've seen it's been an exciting year, an encouraging year, and we're focused on keep on keeping on, as the saying goes. Tonight, we are going to, myself and Ms. Hartman are going to split this presentation. There's some great updates with Destination Oconee. If you remember, the Oconee Economic Alliance is more than just a simple alliance. We've got quite a few programs, quite a few initiatives. You see the flow chart there. The Made in Oconee initiative, the NOW program, are having tremendous successes. We actually met with the school district today, talking about a initiative they're doing, Educator in the Workforce, on someday towards the end of October. I think it's the 23rd. Don't quote me on that. Where they're going to have nearly 500 teachers come and visit around 20 industries in Oconee County for the entire day and look at what is manufacturing in the year 2017, what is made in Oconee, and just continue the initiatives around changing the perceptions of what is manufacturing in the current world that we're in. The NOW program has had a lot of successes. We've had one cohort, as they like to say, finish that with the anticipated graduation in May of next year. As you may recall, that started out with about 70 applicants, and then 30 individuals were selected for that program, 10 from each high school, and they're going through different scenarios, different classes, different education opportunities, learning what is manufacturing from a real-world standpoint. So, exciting program. You're definitely going to hear more about it as we celebrate the graduation of what used to be juniors, now seniors in high school, that have made a choice to learn more about manufacturing. So excited about that side of the Alliance House. On the middle there, you see the Tri-County Entrepreneurial Development Corporation that lives underneath our umbrella. Credit to Dave Eldridge and Terry McKinney. They have helped to educate over 1,200 people in the last roughly year, 18 months on taking their ideas and working with them to formulate a business plan. Some of those are now full-fledged businesses in Oconee County. The incubator itself, thanks to you on council for providing that support, that incubator has 10 businesses in downtown Walhalla. 10 businesses called Downtown Walhalla home because of the incubator that you are helping to provide. So a lot of successes around that. The other side of the umbrella is the Destination Oconee initiative that Janet will speak to in a second. She'll touch on Think Oconee, which is, again, carving out success in our community, and she'll touch on that. Before she comes up, I do want to recognize two new members, at least they're old hacks now, been on the staff for a few months, but they are new to you. I do encourage you to meet them and talk to them. First is Daja Dial. Daja is our marketing and communications manager, and has jumped right in to help us tell the world what is Oconee County and the many successes, the many things going on here to that global audience, but also here locally to continue to let people know what's happening in their backyard. So she's doing a phenomenal job. Beside her is Emily Hodge. Emily is our Economic Development Specialist. Fancy title. What that means is she manages our databases, our property flyers, really provides a lot of back-end support around the responses to RFIs, to company needs. She was instrumental in the planning and execution of the AOP Showcase, which I'll touch on later in the presentation. But with that, I do want to turn it over to Janet Hartman, that you all know. She is responsible for our Destination Oconee initiative that you have charged our office with, and she's going to touch on some of the highlights in the last few months.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, gentlemen. I am here, as Richard said, to give you some updates on what's going on and what has been going on with the Destination Oconee plan. And the first slide will talk about the Great Oconee Cleanup. If you remember back in April, we partnered with a number of organizations and led the charge of a cleanup of 200 plus volunteers. And then we segued right into the next slide showing the challenge that we did with downtowns and issued that to the 5 municipalities. 4 of those took us up on that challenge, and if you remember, the challenge was if they participated, we would give them a $500 grant toward a beautification project in their community, and if the winner of that challenge, which was chosen by a committee outside of our office, they would receive a $5,000 grant toward beautification in their downtown. And this slide shows you the winner was Westminster. They had a great cleanup event, and they also had 90 volunteers show up. Just last Friday, I met with the City of Westminster, and they continue to work on that community involvement, and they have a community group involved in putting their beautification project together. So hopefully by the end of the year, that will be completed. We'll be coming back to you to say this is what's been done as a result of that challenge, and just continuing to carry forward the Destination Oconee program and that cohesive environment that we're trying to create. So in addition to the challenge and working with the cities, the next slide will show downtown Walhalla is, we've worked a good bit with downtown Walhalla. They were ready for some of the initiatives that were coming forward from Destination Oconee. So in working with Walhalla, since I've been involved, they have formed their Downtown Development Corporation. They have created a facade grant program, and just recently have adopted, their Planning Commission has adopted design standards, design guidelines for their downtown core, which is something that was spoke to pretty specifically in the Destination Oconee plan. So now they have standards that when someone wants to come in with a development into their community, wants to do some improvements, they have standards and guidelines that they would like them to follow. And I think that's going to be, from the meetings, the public meetings that have been held, that's been received very positively. People are excited that that's coming to Walhalla. With the design guidelines, the next slide shows with the Development Authority, they chose their area of focus to be their core of downtown. And so you can see it's Main Street and then Broad to Broad on either side. But that really encapsulates what is downtown Walhalla. So if you think about where they did their streetscape, this is a prime example of those areas. And the great thing with Walhalla, if you haven't heard, a number of properties on Main Street have turned over. There's new investment in downtown Walhalla. There's new development. As you drive through, you'll see some new businesses in the last 6 to 12 months and new ones that are going to be coming right behind. So in addition to those programs, again, focused in this nucleus of their downtown, the next slide shows, I already spoke to the facade grant program. They contributed or dedicated $10,000 toward a facade grant program in downtown Walhalla, and they currently have 4 projects that they've approved and 4 projects that are working. Haven't completed yet, so there hasn't been a lot of PR on that, but it's great because they're working with the business community, and the business community is very receptive to that. So we've got the facade grant. I talked about the design guidelines. And this isn't just Walhalla, because Westminster has had some conversations relative to their development corporation picking up steam again, and they also have adopted a business incentive plan. So continuing to work on the different things with downtown development, because as you heard Mr. Mulder just speak about, that sense of place, getting people out into the community again, we need to continue to grow and build our downtown. So very excited about the downtown development things that are happening with Destination Oconee. And then finally, you remember I was here. Is there another slide? I was before council in August, and I presented the Destination Oconee report from the committee. And if you remember, we presented the report along with a project list. And I just put this up again because we are hoping there is, not that I expect you to be able to read the list, but that there will be a meeting, we are hoping, with the full council, maybe a work session, to really talk about Destination Oconee, the projects that we have on this list, and how we can continue to move this forward. Everywhere we go in the community, we hear positive things about Destination Oconee. Think Oconee is a big part of that. When you think positively about the community, positive things happen, and we feel like those things are happening right now. So one other thing, I don't even have a separate slide on Think Oconee, but Friday marks the 1-year anniversary of Think Oconee. We kicked it off a year ago, October 6th. So be watching social media, maybe listening to the radio. There's going to be some fun things happening in the month of October with the Think Oconee program. So next slide. Now we're going to talk about a couple of related updates, and I will speak to this one, and then Mr. Blackwell will come back up. But obviously, everyone remembers we had an eclipse back in August. We had an event out at the airport, and a number of you were present at that event, but it was a huge success in a number of ways. We set the stage really to have an event for the Alliance investors, and what happened was we found that the Oconee County Airport is very popular in many areas. So we had the event at the airport, and fortunately, we were set up to accommodate the 110 planes that flew in that day. Over 300 people were at the airport. And I think if people think we have a small airport, we can accommodate a lot out there. We know that we have a lot of activity at the airport on game days, obviously with Clemson. But I think on an ongoing basis, this is kind of a hidden gem, and it's a resource and an asset that we need to probably do a little bit more promotion and provide a little attention to, from the standpoint that there's a lot of opportunity out there. So our office, based on this event that we had with the Alliance and the Eclipse out there, we're going to partner with the airport and try to do some things. There are a lot of folks that fly in here that need to know more about what goes on in Oconee County and what's available here. So we hope to do more of that with Jeff and the folks out at the airport. So with that, I will turn it back to Richard.
Thank you, Ms. Hartman. And again, you've seen a lot of good things around Destination Oconee. I do want to say thank you to Mr. Mulder for allowing the Think Oconee banners to be hung at the convenient recycling centers. And also the school district has allowed us to put Think Oconee banners at the high school football stadiums to, again, get that message out there, to get people to think positively about Oconee County. So economic development efforts, we've had a large amount of successes. Granted, that was, I guess, yesterday, and it's always, what have you done for me lately? But as you can see in that slide there, in the last 5 years, roughly 1,400 new jobs, over $432 million in new capital investment has been placed in this county, and that's over 32 deals. So in the world of baseball, that's like hitting 32 singles. Rather than some communities get one home run and that's all they have, I'm very proud by the number of deals that our team has helped to usher in, because it helps to get to one of our goals, and that is to diversify our economy and to get more employers here, not just continue to support just one. You know, I also want to say thank you for the BorgWarner support. A lot of people, well, that was, you know, that's easy. We took that for granted. I can assure you the answer to that is no. We had to do a lot of fighting, so to speak, with corporate leadership. As some of you may know, that out of the 62 locations BorgWarner has in the world, that is the second largest and the second most profitable. So from a corporate standpoint, no one likes to put all their eggs in one basket. So we had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of fact-finding to support Mr. Walsh and also the new plant manager in saying this needs to be here rather than Mexico. Luckily, it was convincing, and that's due to you on council for making those decisions, to helping to support those decisions. So I appreciate that. That has helped us to have one of the best years ever in the history of the county. That deal, BorgWarner alone, was the largest economic development project in the history of the county. Previous to that was BASF. They had invested $60 million twice. But this $71 million, 163 new jobs, was the largest project in the history of the county. For the first time ever in a calendar year, this community has seen over $100 million in new investment. $153.2 million in new investment and over 365 new jobs just in the last 10 months and 2 days, or 3 days. Today's the 3rd. Just in the last 20 months, Oconee County has ushered in $243 million in new capital investment and 478 new jobs. That's 11 total projects. I don't say that to toot the Alliance's horn. I say that to say thank you to you. Thank you to our partners. Thank you to Mr. Mulder. Everyone pulls on that rope in the same direction, and that's the reason we're having those successes. You on council set the policy that we're able to work with and be successful with, and hopefully you take a lot of pride in that just as we do. But again, that was yesterday, so we must move on and continue to focus on getting our industrial parks full. Our unemployment is at a record low. It's at, it's close to a record low. I take that back. It's dropped roughly 0.7% in the last year. 4.5%, that's still roughly 1,500 people looking for a job. But one thing to take pride in is we now have more people working in the county in the history of the county. A little over 33,000 people are working in August of 2017, and you can see the difference. So I never was good at math. That's roughly 700 people that have been added to the payrolls. Those are Oconee County citizens that are working. That's not our labor shed. Those are Oconee County citizens that now have a job. You can kind of see from 2012 to where we are today, again, the highest number ever working. I've said that before. It seems like every time I make a report to this committee, we talk about highest number ever. It just keeps going up and up and up. So that's a good thing to have and to celebrate. With that, I do want to point out one decision that doesn't make the paper, but we take a lot of pride in it, and that's Olbrich's decision to essentially stay open in Westminster. They had a decision to consolidate between Oregon and Westminster, and they chose to keep Westminster open. So that is 100 jobs saved in Westminster. Sorry for my friends in Oregon, but I'm glad that Westminster will continue their operations along with our friends in Austria, making PV ribbon for predominantly solar panels. So again, that's a decision that you won't read in the paper, but again, that's because of county government, the school district, you on council, setting good policy, having good services, customer service, just making this a great place to live, work, play, and invest. So celebrate that decision just like we celebrate BorgWarner's decision. Switching gears slightly, I want to talk about the Oconee County Job Fair. I do want to say thank you to really the three people behind me, Janet, Daja, and Emily, for helping to put forth this initiative. First time ever that we, the county, have put forth a job fair. We had 32 companies sign up. To sign up to participate, you had to have a job available. This wasn't a time to showcase your business or to talk. This was a chance to get somebody in that job. So we had 32 companies represented looking to fill 250 jobs. And thanks to that team for putting that together, but also thanks to the outreach that they got put forth, we had over 600 people show up. And we've had a lot of testimonials, stories. We did a survey. We've got data to prove the effectiveness of that job fair. We've had people now say, when's the next one? I don't know the answer to that. Hopefully, we won't have to do a next one. Everybody gets a job, but we know that is wishful thinking, so we are considering what do we do in the future to help those people find new opportunities. But it was highly successful, thanks to the county for participating also, looking to fill some of their jobs. We will report more in the future. We'll take some of those testimonials and package those and get those out and celebrate, again, people getting new opportunities or even a new job. So again, thank you to the team for doing that. The next picture you'll see is 4 different things. Just want to touch on it. We had the Upstate Alliance staff come and visit Bad Creek and visit Oconee County, learn more of our story. There's some new faces at the Upstate Alliance, so we invited them to town, ate in downtown Seneca. You see Mr. Kane there talking about Oconee County and the great things happening here. And the picture to his right there is the new Zaxby's going in downtown Walhalla, on the outskirts of downtown Walhalla. Great new restaurant coming to town. The bottom left is Nason. This was a deal that you on council worked last year and helped to put forward some good policy to allow that expansion to occur. They hung the steel, now they're enclosing the building and looking for more good things. They too are hiring, so a lot of good things there. The bottom right is the AOP Showcase. Again, this is the 10th year that event has taken place. As you know, it started in Oconee County, and we invited our friends from Pickens and also Anderson to join us on this journey in helping to change the perceptions around manufacturing. Yet again, over 5,000 eighth graders were shown what is manufacturing, putting a name with a product, a smile with a company brand. It's very effective. We continue to hear good things about that event, and we're excited to continue that event for hopefully many years to come. The next slide, switching gears, I want to talk about the Workforce Development Campus. If you remember, I hope you do, this is a new satellite campus for Tri-County Tech, a new facility for the adult education, and then a new facility for the high school vocational center. That's the master plan for it. And you see the next slide. That's what it used to look like many moons ago. Nice farm. The next slide will show you what it looked like back in May, before a lot of construction started. And then the next slide you see just a nice open graded pad. Thank you again. I don't think we say that enough because I know that was not an easy decision, but thank you for making that decision, helping to move 1.1 million cubic yards of dirt to put forth this Workforce Development Campus that is unique in the state of South Carolina, and I hope that you'll take pride in a few years when other communities start copying what you've done, because it makes a lot of good sense. So with that, in the next slide, you see Tri-County Tech has hung their steel. This picture's a little old. I think they've actually finished the hanging of the steel and have moved forward to enclosing the building and doing what they need to do. This campus will be open August of 2018, so build it and they will come is that theory, and we hope that, again, through the AOP Showcase, through the Made in Oconee initiative, through the NOW program, through many different initiatives, that people will start recognizing that this campus is an asset. No longer will we expect people to drive from Long Creek to Pendleton. We've shortened that distance, so now we've got an outreach more to the people in Long Creek to let them know that there is some unique programs that will be housed inside these four walls that will get them a job and that will change their family tree. So we're excited about that opportunity. Again, thank you for that. Last thing I'll mention is the spec building update. Thank you again for allowing the Alliance to work with the county on behalf of the county to seek out a funding mechanism through Santee Cooper to put forth a spec building. I won't touch on that. I've talked about it in the past, but it is something that we need. We're continuing to work with Mr. Reed, Kyle Reed, and Mr. Martin, and also Mr. Mulder to basically get what you see in design in place. DOT, a little slower than we like. We're still working on the encroachment permit. Should have that in hand any day now. Pre-con meeting, again, you're going to see the road construction start first. Again, the reason for that is we need that dirt as it's moved to help flatten out that site to where the spec building will go. I hope that we have a ceremony type event the latter part of this year, if not the first of the year, to stick that shovel in the ground. And then by the time, this time next year, there's actually a building out at Golden Corner providing a new opportunity for not only a company, but also jobs in the southern part of our county. So it is moving forward. Unfortunately, it's a snail's pace, but it is a race that we will win in all due time. And I do appreciate the roads department for their help and support in getting it done, as the saying goes. With that, I will close answer any questions. Janet will answer any questions that you may have. Yes,
What
sir.
about today? You talked about yesterday. To make you feel better,
To make
I
me
was
feel
out
better.
there today at the job site, and they gave the plans with the seal on them from
Excellent.
DHEC, the
Excellent.
grading plan, so that part happened today.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I mean, as you know, obviously better than I sometimes, a lot of hands got to touch that, DHEC, SCDOT. You know, we're working as fast as state government will allow, because I know Mr. Reed and Mr. Martin and many others are doing their job. It's just, unfortunately, we got to hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. With that, on the spec building itself, we have signed the development agreement that you passed at the last meeting. I say we, the Alliance Board has signed that. We're in the process of getting a new survey finalized, and also a new appraisal on that land, something that Santee Cooper requires. Should have that done in a matter of days. And then we'll basically be done with our application. There's no more, hey, we need this, hey, we need that. We've answered everything that Santee Cooper has said, and knock on wood, we should get our money in 4 to 6 weeks, if not sooner. So that's kind of where things are. As far as the pipeline for economic development, extremely busy, extremely active in all 3 parks. The Seneca Rail site, that road construction project is continuing. Mr. Mulder and I should be sitting down with the city of Seneca probably the next 2 to 3 weeks to revisit that design, and again, remind them that we are going to be moving that road. The engineers are working with Norfolk Southern on some grading around the rail spur there, but it's moving along nicely. It is getting activity. We've got a project out of Georgia that's looking at that industrial park that we hope to solidify not in the not too distant future. Golden Corner is getting a lot of hits. We've got a lot of project submissions out there. Same thing with the Oconee Industry and Technology Park. It not only the previous or the remaining pad that's out there is getting some looks, but also the new flattened dirt is getting some looks too. So things are well. Staff is busy. So we, again, appreciate everything that you're providing to us as far as tools in our toolbox.
Well, thank you for all that you've done and everyone on our team in the economic development front. You know, these are awesome and enviable accomplishments that I'm sure any community in South Carolina would be very happy to say are theirs. But they are ours, and you know, that's awesome that little old Oconee County is really with your leadership, Mr. Mulder's leadership, setting the pace. And that's really impressive to see all the different things going on that, yes, everybody in the country is going to be copying these things. Probably already are. But you know, what is it? Imitation is the best form of flattery. So.
And you're
Thank you.
exactly right. I mean, just to touch on, you know, I call the AOP Showcase the granddaddy of them all because about 3 weeks ago, Greenwood County did theirs. Spartanburg County's done theirs. Dorchester County's done theirs. And it all started here in Oconee County. So again, it's because of your decisions on council that leads to these good things. There is that paper trail. So again, thank you for the support and the support of all the utility providers. I mean, again, it's economic development is a team sport, and I do appreciate the staff for all their hard work and for putting up with me.
You listen to talk radio.
Well, it depends on which talk radio.
Well,
Clemson sports, no,
I
sir,
just
I
want to
don't.
say dittos to what he said.
I understand. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Does anybody have any unfinished business? I did want to mention one thing that I brought up a few times, technology incubator potential. That's something that I really think that this committee needs to take a long and hard look at in the next few months, because that is a big opportunity for us, especially considering our proximity to Clemson University, great research university. They also happen to have a pretty good football team, which I am enviable of. But they are a huge economic driver for this area, for this state. And we need to bring some of that talent over the river and keep them over the river so they don't go to Boston or Minneapolis or Austin or Silicon Valley. They need to be here. And so we need to create a ecosystem for them to be successful and give them opportunity. Richard and and Janet met with the city of Seneca and some folks probably month and a half ago who are interested in doing a tech incubator in Oconee County. And I think that that's something that could work very well with the existing Tri-County Entrepreneurial Development Corporation. We already have a 501c3 set up, but I think the next committee meeting would be a good time to have those folks come in and talk about the opportunities. It's not without investment. We would have to put some tax dollars to work to get this thing off the ground. But I think, and we have to be willing to let businesses fail, but we never know. We might have the next Google or the next Facebook or the next Abbott Labs or something that could start right here in Oconee County. And if it starts here, it's probably going to stay here. It's probably going to attract more talent from Clemson, and it's going to attract more investment. And those are the types of jobs that don't get taken over by robots and automation. The human brain, I hope and I pray, will never be replicated by a computer. And if it is, it'll be the last thing to be replicated. But I think that's very important, and I hope that we will move forward with that. But that's just something that I've talked about a few times, and we are taking concrete steps, sort of in a disorganized fashion right now. But I think it'll become more clear here in the next few months. But I just want to let y'all know that I'm focused on it. Anybody else have any other unfinished business? Any new business? All right. Do I hear a
Motion to adjourn?
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Order, County Council, October 3rd, a couple of minutes after 6 p.m. We're going to begin with the public comment session. We have several people signed up today, so I'd like to remind you all that you do have a 4-minute limit. And we're going to start with Ms. Richardson of Our Daily Rest.
Good evening. Esteemed county council members and fellow citizens of Oconee County, I came here tonight for one reason and one reason only, and that was to say thank you. Thank you for the support and investment that you have given to your fellow citizens who happen to be residents at one time or another at Our Daily Rest. No one plans to be homeless. Some people need a hand up in order to get their lives back in order. The impact that your support gives this community through Our Daily Rest, well, let me just tell you. So far this year, we've had 120 clients come through our doors. 20 of those have been children. We have another 21 adults in the shelter at the moment. Of the remaining, we've had 55 graduates as of yesterday. Now, that's 55 people, 55 households who now have homes and jobs, and they can sustain themselves. They will pay taxes and be part of this community. We have a lot of supporters, but you guys give a significant investment, and we appreciate that. And I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Blackston, corridor overlay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I didn't know about this overlay thing till the other day, and I have property that will be affected by this, and other people that's got property along there had not heard nothing about it. The property owners hadn't been informed, and I think the people who are going to be affected by anything like this, before anything's initiated, first they should be contacted and notified. I mean, it's talking about highway cuts and limiting access. Well, the state highway department already does that. They do that on cuts. You can't have them ever so far a distance apart and everything, and it's aggravating to turn around, and every time you turn around, somebody's trying to regulate your property. I mean, you know, you're supposed to have property rights, but then somebody comes up with an idea, and then you have to fight to protect your own interests. And it gets harassing at times, and people, local government is supposed to represent the people, not be here to put up stuff that harasses them and causes them problems. And this thing will not enhance 123. It will be a detriment to it, and it needs to be stopped now. I mean, as private property owner, I tell you what, we don't need any more regulations. We need the county and other governmental agencies to work with you, encourage development, not to slow it down. And I would appreciate it if you would certainly put the brakes on this thing and stop it, because we've had this zoning, which according to the state Supreme Court cases that have gone before it, there's some fallacies about it. And I question the validity of the way it was drafted and how it was handled. And I think if it's ever tested before the state Supreme Court, it would fail. And this thing is just another thing of zoning to try to control property without owning it. And we don't need it, and I would appreciate you putting the brakes on it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Randy DeWeese. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm plant manager at Ideal Steel here in South Carolina. I've been with Ideal Steel for 17 years in Oconee County. Today, I just wanted to discuss 2 or 3 different issues. One, our company, we're connected with Oregon. We have several locations, but at this moment, I am up against financial, everything, basically company-wide, we're going through to try to keep our company in Oconee County. You know, I've been notified that millage rates for industry taxes are going up. We were questioning about help. We're currently leasing a building. We're talking about purchasing it, trying to consolidate some. I learned that we will be helped if we build a new building. But if we just buy a building, we don't receive help. There's several things there that I believe it's just as important to keep 50 jobs in the county as it is to bring in 50 new jobs. So those are things that I believe we need to look at as a county. Also, skilled laborers, and I hear this from everyone in the county and all over. Everyone in the industry is having problems finding skilled laborers. And it's not just the skills to do the job, but it's the normal job culture skills that they're not having, that they don't want to show up at work. They lay out all the time. You know, it's almost like we need to go back and retrain from start on how you should even be presented at your job. And I'm not sure if there's any programs or if we could come up with any programs for that type. But I know Tri-County, we've had several people through there. It's the same issue. I'm not sure if Tri-County builds them up too much. We have welders, people come in, they expect to get out of school and make $25 an hour. And that's not happening in this area. But we're having a major problem with laborers in the area. And I know most, like I said, about every machine shop or everyone else I talk to, our biggest customer, Lift Technologies, everyone in the area is having the same issues. Like I said, we need to work stronger, I believe, on our job culture and how people need to be presented at the job. I have guys that'll start a job new and we usually do a 90-day training program, but sometimes within the first 3 weeks, they've already missed 3 or 4 days. And it's a major issue. Like I said, and then one other issue we have with them too is just having vehicles and a dependable ride to work. So there's several issues in the job thing, not just with the job skills and the training, the teaching, but with just the overall job pool out there. So, but any way that Oconee can help, I think, to keep the industries they currently have in the county, keep them in the county, would be very beneficial to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnett?
I don't even have to tell you what I'm going to talk about. It's our private property rights. It's an issue with me day in, day out. This whole thing stinks to high heaven. Those on the power trip that cooked it up also stink. The whole deal stinks because this goes against everything this great country is supposed to stand for. This shouldn't be happening in America. I don't care where else they do it. They done it in Charleston, they do it here, they do it there. This ain't Charleston, this ain't here and there. This is Oconee County. Oconee County belongs to us. The land that you want to seize control of belongs to the people you're supposed to be representing. Now, Mr. Hart has experience along this line. Families years ago gave up right-of-way, public right-of-way for public roads with no compensation. It evolved from private to county to state. We did that. Then, later on, we gave up easements for water lines, sewer lines, power lines, you name it, utilities to serve all the people. Is this the thanks we get for doing that? It's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. And it's the same people keep cooking up scheme after scheme after scheme to seize control of somebody else's personal, private assets. Now, our land is a fixed asset, and it's no different from our personal bank account. Same principle. So essentially, when you seize our land, you have seized our bank account, and we've committed no crime. The only crime we've committed in this case will be owning road frontage and it being in Oconee County. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Gramling.
My comments are my personal comments as a citizen of Oconee County and landholder. When you consider the change from control-free to the zoning matrix, do you really want to require people to take their property into a zoning matrix just because the neighbors want to and they don't? Which one of you wants your property to be forcibly changed into another district? I doubt if there's anybody. But we need to have 100% consent, and we need to minimize the acreage required to change. Oconee County is the only county in the state that has an acreage requirement. And that's something for all of you to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Crenshaw.
Good evening, council members. Coming to you this evening to talk with you about possible consideration of the adoption fees that is set by council for animals in Oconee County. My comments, I'm going to leave them with you, and I'm going to share them with you because I've got some statistics in here. We've been working with the Humane Society, who's got some members present, along with some members of our staff, to put this together. We're both in agreement on it. But I'm speaking on behalf of the Animal Control and the Humane Society in regard to variable pricing for county shelter pets. The goal of both Animal Control and the Humane Society is to place as many pets as possible, adoptable pets, into homes and reduce the overall euthanasia rate. Currently, dog and cat adoptions are at a fixed price of $85 for dogs and $75 for cats. This policy does not take into account factors such as a purebred dog or cat, which could ultimately bring in a higher price adoption fee, or a senior dog or cat, which may require a lower fee to find an adopter. Variable pricing is fully supported by national animal welfare groups. American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals advocates giving shelters this flexibility to lower or waive fees as a component of an adoption promotion or campaign. Shelters can then expand adoption opportunities to adapt to economic and community dynamics. The ASPCA also encourages shelters to employ their discretion to waive or reduce fees whenever possible in order to save more lives in the communities. Give you some examples. Animal shelters throughout the upstate and surrounding areas all have some form of variable pricing. For example, Spartanburg Humane Society charges $25 for dog adoptions and $100 for puppies 4 months or younger. Anderson Paws charges $35 for dogs initially and reduces the price to $10 after 60 days. Greenville Humane Society dogs are $65. You can see there puppies ranging from $160 to $195. And we see lots of these places running specials throughout the year. We've seen kittens, $3 for 3 days specials, an October special featuring dogs over 25 pounds for $25. We've seen kittens for $25 or 2 for $40. Greenville Animal Care offered all dogs over 40 pounds free throughout this past summer. So as you can see, these specials give customers a great deal of choice in where they adopt. Currently, the only way that an adoption fee can be reduced in our county is through donations or sponsorships. You know, if we offer animals at a reduced rate, we have to make up that difference through donations or sponsorships. We also miss out on an opportunity to possibly charge more for specific breeds or ages. The bottom line, without this pricing flexibility in Oconee County, we can't compete with our surrounding shelters. We know price makes a difference in Oconee County. Our Humane Society and our animal shelter folks recently sponsored a Super Solar Saturday event during the eclipse where we offered dogs and cats for $10. And they had folks lined up an hour before opening that morning at the gate to take advantage of that. Ultimately ended up adopting more animals in one day than they do in most months. I think it was more than 40 animals adopted in that one day. We realize this extreme price drop should not be a common occurrence, but it filled a great need in reducing numbers in our shelter that were crowded from a busy summer season. If given this flexibility, our Animal Control and Humane Society will work together to determine the best pricing to support an individual animal's adoption. So we're asking to change it to a maximum of $125 down to a minimum of $25. We continue to grow as a county, and our responsibility to care for homeless pets must also grow. We greatly appreciate the support that you all have shown us up to this date, and we ask that you stand with us in this endeavor as well. We truly believe that we'll be able to save more animals if we have the ability to price them effectively. So as you get into it, if you do consider it tonight, if you have any questions, we'll be here to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Markovich.
Good evening, Council. I'm Tom Markovich, and I am speaking only on my behalf and nobody else. I'm here to speak on Ordinance 2017-25, which is about the small area method of rezoning. Now, I am totally in favor of changing the small area method of rezoning. However, I object strenuously to the 50-acre requirement. This is the only county I know of in the state that has a minimum acreage requirement for rezoning. Rezoning is a parcel system. It is based on a parcel. And I don't know why we have to go through all these. It makes no sense to me. Furthermore, I don't think it aligns with state law. State law says that when we create these zoning districts, that we have to regulate them uniformly. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have different regulations for one zoning district as opposed to another. But we can't have different regulations within the same zoning district. So that brings into account control-free district. So if you've got more than 50 acres and you're a single parcel owner, you can just go out and just petition and rezone on your own. You don't have to have, but if you don't have 50 acres, if you're a lesser than person, then all of a sudden, no, you got to have 50 acres. Well, that's two different regulations that we've created within that same zoning district, and I think it's a violation of the state law. And not only that, I think it's just fundamentally unfair. There is nothing that is, now, Mr. Root and I have a difference in opinion on what we think that might entail, but I think it's a equal protection issue myself, and I just think this thing should be any parcel owner should be able to rezone. There shouldn't be a minimum requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for those who signed up. Any council member comments at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
I'd like to commend the sheriff on his ideas on the adoption. Other counties got more flexibility. I think this is a great idea. I love dogs. I don't like to see any dog euthanized. In my past military experience, stuffed bodies in body bags don't bother me a bit. Hearing about a dog euthanized, that tears me up bad. And I think the sheriff is right on the money. And maybe we should also look at, the free thing, any dog weighing over such and such, dogs are loving animals. Every dog needs a home. If you don't think a dog needs a home, then you kind of don't have a warm place in your heart. Thank you.
Mr. Root, do we need an ordinance amendment for this, or can we just agree to do this, or how does this work?
Yes, ma'am. The fees are structured as part of the budget ordinance. So in the budget ordinance, you've got a fee schedule for all the county fees, and the adoption fees are established in there. We do have a budget amendment based on previous council discussions coming up in the next meeting or two. We can, with your permission, we can go ahead and begin putting those amendments to those fee schedules as part of that budget amendment when it comes forward for council reading based on your discussion, so.
Okay, but my question is, does it require 3 readings and a public hearing as usual, or?
Yes, ma'am, it would.
Okay. So to answer Mr. Sheriff Crenshaw's earlier question, it will take some time to get this passed.
It will take some time, the 3 readings, but I have drafted up the amendment to the budget ordinance based on the earlier discussions we had, so we could put this in there, and I think we'll have it for the next meeting, so we'll have first reading then.
Next time, in October? Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, can we do this, since he started on it, can we do it in title only tonight?
It wouldn't be, because the budget is such a sacrosanct document, it's better not to do anything with that in title only, and because we have a few other things that need to be spelled out, and I want to have those in front of you so you can read them.
Okay.
And we can do it all at the same time. So I have the 3 readings, first one October 17th.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Hart? Mr. Kane? Nothing? Okay, no further council member comments, then please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Root?
Good evening, Dan. Day that you created. All of us. Find the tragedy, Vegas and the tragedies that we see and perhaps have become so frequent that we get numb to. I pray that you would soften our hearts. Gratitude in us, desire to love kindness, to do justice, walk humbly with you. That will be the order of our meeting tonight, and as we go from this place.
Mr. Davis, the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need to approve the last minutes from September 19th. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion, any changes that need to be made? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we're supposed to have a presentation by Doug Wright of Senior Solutions, and I do not see him here. And if for any reason he couldn't make it and texted me or emailed me, I haven't looked at my cell phone, so I don't really know. You didn't hear anything? Okay, I'll check with him, and we'll just go ahead and move on to Proclamation 2017-08, a proclamation designating the month of October 2017 as Dyslexia Awareness Month in Oconee County.
Madam Chair, I'd like to read that into the record. A proclamation designating the month of October 2017 as Dyslexia Awareness Month in Oconee County, South Carolina. Whereas Oconee County, South Carolina, a body politic and corporate and a political subdivision of the state of South Carolina, recognizes the importance of education and workforce development for the betterment of Oconee County and its citizens. And whereas approximately 1 in 5 people, regardless of race, gender, age, or socioeconomic status, have dyslexia. And whereas dyslexia affects the way the brain processes information and is characterized by difficulties with reading, writing, and spelling, despite normal or high intelligence. And whereas an individual with dyslexia may have weakness in reading fluency, but will typically have strength in higher level cognitive functions, such as reasoning, critical thinking, concept formation, or problem solving. And whereas those with dyslexia and reading difficulties benefit greatly from specialized assistance from highly trained teachers, multisensory learning programs, and individualized instruction. And whereas, according to the National Institutes of Health, approximately 80% of prison inmates are reported to be functionally illiterate, and NIH has further found that dyslexia and other reading difficulties account for a significant percentage of that rate. And whereas early identification and alternative evidence-based instruction can contribute to the success dyslexic students enjoy in the classroom, in life, and later on as a part of the workforce. And whereas Oconee County Council desires to encourage its citizens to seek information and early testing of children if it is suspected that a child has reading difficulties. And whereas, as a part of Oconee County's continued efforts to develop and provide an effective workforce, Oconee County Council desires to express its support of efforts to provide no-cost public education for children with dyslexia and reading difficulties. And whereas Oconee County Council recognizes that an innovative school named Lakes and Bridges Charter School will open in fall of 2018 in order to serve the children of Oconee County who have dyslexia and reading difficulties. Now, therefore, it is hereby proclaimed by Oconee County Council in meeting duly assembled that, first, Oconee County, acting by and through the Oconee County Council, hereby designates the month of October 2017 as Dyslexia Awareness Month in Oconee County in order to raise public awareness of dyslexia and other reading difficulties. Second, Oconee County hereby encourages its citizens to seek early testing for children with suspected reading difficulties. And third, Oconee County hereby supports the efforts of Lakes and Bridges Charter School in bolstering workforce development by providing the children of the Tri-County area who have dyslexia and reading difficulties with no-cost public education. And it is approved and adopted upon vote of this council.
Do I hear a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
At this point, I'd like to invite Ms. Nancy Linville and Ms. Susan Dooley to come talk to us a little bit about Lakes and Bridges Charter School.
Thank you so much, council members, for this resolution. We greatly appreciate it. I am chairman of the founding committee of Lakes and Bridges. And this gentleman from the mentioned that they're having difficulty finding good workforce people who are able to do work. And our school will help to meet that need. Currently, and this is a sobering statistic, 66% of fourth graders in South Carolina are not reading on grade level. And many of these students have dyslexia, so our school will be opening in 2018. Eric, the young man sitting over here, will be a student in our school when it opens, and children from anywhere, as long as their parents are residents in South Carolina, may go to this school because we'll be part of the state charter school district. And we're excited about this school, and thank you for this opportunity to share. Susie?
I'm Susan Dooley, and I'm on the founding member for Lakes and Bridges Charter School, and I'm delighted to be able to talk with you. I want you to think back a minute about how you learned to read in school way back when. Probably 1 out of 5 in this room may have had difficulty doing that. I have a daughter that really suffered. Her IQ was very high, but she could not learn in traditional ways that schools taught her. And through her, we have learned about the research-based methods of reading instruction so that no one will have to go through the struggles that she went through. We are, as Nancy said, opening in the fall of 2018. We greatly appreciate your support, and we appreciate you helping get the word out about our school. I also wanted to mention the lady from Our Daily Rest and the clientele that they have. I guarantee you that many of the people that passed through those doors dropped out of school because they had difficulty reading, and we want to prevent that, especially in our state. Nancy said the statistics about the reading difficulties, and 66% is a horrific number of children that are below grade level. We've got to, and we can do better than that. Again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to give them the copy of the proclamation? Mr. Mulder, Administrator Report.
Yes, ma'am. This will be brief. We have 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first of which is ordinance 2017-25, scheduling the agenda for a first reading consideration this evening. This is an ordinance that would amend Article 8 of Chapter 38 of our Code of Ordinances, specifically as it relates to provisions for small area method rezoning. It'll do a few things. It'll reduce the minimum requirement from 200 acres to 50 acres. It does away with the petition method, which would do away with any or any involuntary inclusion into the rezoning request. And it also creates some contiguous requirements as well for the particular area of zoning. They all must be contiguous properties. Then the next item you have is on the executive session side. We do have one executive session item in reference to Project Omega. This was an amendment to the agenda from late last week. Mr. Blackwell and the OEA had requested this based on some updated activity on Project Omega. And
That's it.
that's it, Madam Chair.
Okay, so no public hearings today, no third readings, no second readings. We do have a first reading of ordinance 2017-25, an ordinance amending Article 8 of Chapter 38 of the Coney County Code of Ordinances. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I got, Mr. Mulder, one of the things you were bringing up was the no involuntary in here. So when we talk about the changing the acreage from a 200 acre down to a 50 acre, if the land is next to that, they're zoned control free just as they were zoned originally, correct?
That's correct. Previously, we had a petition method where a certain percentage of the properties within that area could sign a petition, and then even if you did not sign the petition, you could be brought in with the particular area. This ordinance amendment will actually do away with that. So it's 100% concurrent activity in order to be rezoned in that particular district.
Right, because that was the donut hole provision that a lot of people had issues with in the old, where if you had, you
Now,
know.
this is a little different from the donut hole provision. This basically is the applicant or the petitioner could have, was it 75%? 51%.
Did that,
Legal, when we go to the legal side, we'll let him explain.
the 51% of landowners owning 75% of the land, but yeah, the involuntary folks could be within a donut hole, or they could be outside and contiguous and brought in. So I was with the planning commission as they worked through this. That was one of their goals, was to get rid of that possibility of someone being brought in
Right.
involuntarily.
Because I think that was one of the things I wanted to correct. That was a statement made earlier that, you know, it's not, you're not gonna be drug into it if you're not part of that 50-acre land, whether you're the 40 and the 10, or if you've got 75 acres of your own land, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. I've got 34 pages here of our zonings and the definitions of them. I keep them in my little notebook here for these occasions. We turned down the last ordinance, 2016-41, and it sort of seems like they are trying to slide in the back door with another one. I've been on council for 10 months, and I've yet to see anything come out of planning commission that was planning other than just zoning. And if you look at this thing, item 12 says that if this is rejected, this amendment, that should wait 2 years to be refiled. I say let the clock start for October 2019.
I'm not sure I understood that. Say that again?
They said if we turned it down today, they would wait 2 years and refile it. I say let the clock start today for 2019.
Well, actually, while you're bringing that up, let me bring out something else. Because Adam and I actually put a discussion of this small area zoning on the agenda for our joint council and planning commission meeting. So as far as I'm concerned, we're going to be discussing this at the end of the month. So I just assume table this and just wait to hear how it plays itself out in that workshop that we're having.
Make a motion to table it.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just to jump in, so it doesn't have, y'all are meeting at the end of the month, we'll have another meeting before that. If you table it, we're gonna have to bring it back up for consideration. Can you just make it the motion to postpone instead, so we can bring it up whenever you're ready?
Okay, well, let's do that.
Make a motion to postpone.
Second?
Okay. So do we just vote on the motion to
If
postpone?
there's any discussion, and then vote on it, yes, ma'am.
Any discussion, any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'm not understanding the reason that I understand that we were trying to get some more discussion on it, which is why you have the 3 readings on it, not just one. The one concern that I have, the whole reason, my understanding that we were going down to the 50 acres was so to allow an easier access for people to change the zoning if they don't like the control-free and they want another area of zoning. I thought that was, what that was. It kind of takes the, control out of the county and puts it more in the hands of the landowner, which is I thought that's what a landowner wanted, was more control. I guess I'm just confused with, your statement on there on, with the 200 acres, it was extremely difficult because if you only own, 40 or 50, you weren't even close to the 200. Now we're lowering the requirement and we're still not happy. I guess I'm confused with where we're trying to go for property rights for a landowner.
When I first looked at this, I didn't have a problem originally going down from 200, and then in the interim, they were thinking 100, and then it was down to 50. But I did my own little research, and I came up with the same little fact that Mr. Markovich or Mr. Gramlin brought up, that Oconee County is the only one in the state that actually has an acreage requirement, and I'd like to look into that more. I don't understand why we have to be so different. If everybody doesn't have an acreage requirement, why is it that we have 200, 100, and now 50? We have a board that can decide some of these things, so I don't see why the number shouldn't be 0. So that's where my confusion comes in. And that's why I requested that Adam include this topic on the agenda in our joint meeting so we can further look into this.
So if someone under this 0, and I'm just, for the sake of argument, just play devil's advocate, that's how I think. It's not that I agree necessarily at this point, but just to bring another potential negative into it, is if I own an acre of land and I want to zone myself industrial because I want to start a factory in what would traditionally be a residential area, but it's currently control-free. I can rezone my 1 acre industrial unless there's specific minimum requirements to have a certain number of acres. Just saying, this is, it would, it could lead to some absurd results.
It does, but how do you explain, there's 46 counties in this state? How do you explain that 45 don't have an issue?
It's a good question.
Okay.
I think it's a
That's what
valid
I'm
question.
trying to figure out.
Sure. I think they're both worth exploring.
Yeah. Okay, so having said that, we have a motion to postpone in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, so let's look into this further. All right, first and final readings, there are none, no action items, but we do have board and commission appointments. Does anybody have any potential candidates for their district?
Matt?
Mr. Mulder, do we have a email list for the builders and contractors in this area that we can send out a request for someone for building codes appeals board?
Yes, ma'am, we have a listserv of email contacts for all of our registered builders, so we can
Can
send
we
some
do
out.
that,
Sure.
so to alert them that there's a 1 at-large seat available on building codes appeal board? Maybe we can generate some interest.
So we'll send out a plead tomorrow morning for
Plead.
somebody to step up.
A beg, please. Okay,
Madam Chair?
yes,
I do have a nomination for District 3 Planning Commission,
okay.
and I'd like to nominate Alex Vassy. His questionnaire is on file with the clerk, and everyone should have received a copy of it, I think, at least via email, if not a hard copy.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this candidate? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Okay, no, any unfinished business? New business? No council committee reports? Then we need a motion to recess for executive session for the purpose of discussion regarding economic development matter, Project Omega.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bean.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. No action was taken in executive session, and no further actions are necessary, so I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.